I think having anxiety is a human experience. Yeah, all of us can feel it. Some level of anxiety is normal. I think every human being has multiple triggers for anxiety. Anxiety becomes difficult only when it goes over the top. Physical symptoms like this, then it is very valuable to think that you require to go to a doctor.
So, hello viewers. Today, the guest who have joined us is a transformational leadership coach and trained hundreds of corporates. And she is an amazing, phenomenal speaker as well, and psychologist and psychotherapist. So, welcome Sailja Ma'am to the podcast today.
Thank you, Ronak, for having me.
And ma'am, today the topic we will delve into is anxiety, stress management, leadership, and your book called Step Up, right? So first, actually, to begin with, I would like to know that what is women leadership, and you are in this realm of life that you teach leaders to, I mean, leadership or many kind of stuff to women. So, I mean, how did you decide to be a woman coach, right?
So, Ronak, it's in corporate India, but also in other parts of the world. There are very low number of women in the upper, in the upper crust of organizations and in the upper, hierarchies of organizations.
Right.
So many women join the workforce, but in a couple of years, we find that there are enough reports that talk about it, where there is a leaking pipeline. Women leave the workforce and they're just not available. And those who are available, for many, many different reasons, do not rise to the top. So when you look at senior level leadership positions, there are very few women. And this is true both in the corporate life in India, but
Right.
also in other parts of the world. Overall, there are very few women at the top. And so my work in this space is inspired by the fact that we require more women leaders also to be there at the top. We require more diversity in leadership, in all industries. And that is what brought me, to this focus of building, a good pipeline of women leaders.
Right.
So when I work with different organizations, my endeavor is to create this and support the organization to create such a pipeline. So there are enough women, leaders available in the mid positions, so that all of them are also then available as they grow up in the hierarchy and are available also for senior position roles.
Right, ma'am. Actually, you are running a company called Physics. So, what kind of services you provide, and what is the purpose of Physics company?
Yeah, it's called physis. That's how you
Physics.
pronounce it. It's a Greek word which basically means the inner capacity that all of us have inside of us to grow towards a higher self, to grow towards actualization. Yeah, that's the meaning of the word physis. So physis is all about transformation. It's about personal transformation. It's about realizing one's potential. And the way that I support people to do that is through one-to-one coaching. So I coach senior level leaders one-to-one. I run different kinds of programs, not just for women in leadership, but also for mixed groups, but they're all middle to senior level leaders. And mainly we are dealing with topics like, emotional intelligence, building higher resilience, better stakeholder management. So these are the kind of topics that middle to senior level leaders are more concerned with. So physis supports them through programs as well as through one-to-one coaching conversations.
Physis, right. So, ma'am, as you mentioned that you actually provide leadership coaching to mixed groups, right? So, what are your insights in regard of an anxiety, like how to deal with an anxiety and with anxious thoughts?
Anxious thoughts. Anxious thoughts are there everywhere, Ronak. It's not just with senior people. You find it, I think, having anxiety is a human experience. Yeah, all of us can feel it and experience it. I think so. Some level of anxiety is normal. I think every human being has multiple triggers for anxiety. So I think some level of anxiety is normal. Anxiety becomes difficult only when it goes over the top, right?
Mhm.
Where it does not allow us to function on a normal basis. It does not allow us to attend to our tasks, whether it's personal or professional. And
Right.
when we have emotional breakdowns, that's when anxiety becomes a problem.
Mhm.
Otherwise, a certain level of anxiety is very regular, and all of us have it. I think there are many ways to handle anxiety, Ronak. First and
Right.
foremost, for regular people like you, me, others who have some anxious moments in the day, I
Mhm.
really find that things like very I do an exercise often called centering with my clients, which is nothing but allowing your nervous system to calm down. So any kind of experience that allows your nervous system to calm down. For some of us, it's music. For some of
Mhm.
us, it is going out and taking a walk around our apartment block. For
Walking
some
at.
of us, it's playing with our pet.
Mhm.
For some of us, it is calling a friend and talking to them and letting out all the pressure from it's like a pressure cooker. Just let out all the steam and the
Right.
anxiety comes down. For some of us have meditative practices. So I think these are very simple, not time consuming, but very easy to access
Mhm.
uh, actions that all of us can do. But I think for those who experience a very high level of anxiety, yeah, which stops them from functioning on a day-to-day basis, it
Right.
clouds our mind. We're not able to sit down
Mhm.
and do our work because our mind and body is very anxious.
Right.
It basically means that our nervous system is at a level of, instead of just moving like this, our
Mhm.
nervous system is like, is fully agitated.
Right.
Right. So people who are like that, Ronak, and they feel like that for a long time in the day, I would ask them that it's important to go and meet a doctor because this is not something that gets calmed by talking to a friend or taking a
Mhm.
walk
Right.
or by listening to music. Then I think it is important to meet a psychiatrist, right, who will give you some medication that allows the anxiety to be at a much more manageable level. So I
Manageable.
do there is a role for medication, for any of us who experience anxiety at a very high level. But for others, I think some of these ideas that I've stated are often very helpful and good enough.
Right. And ma'am, you discussed that we should, go to the psychiatrist. So, ma'am, my question is, how to know that I am stressed? I am too much stressed. Is it because of? I mean, there must be traits or a kind of symptoms which will we can acknowledge that now it is a time to meet a psychiatrist. Right.
Sure. I think when we come to our suppose we are working people
Mm.
and we come to work, right? Whether we are sitting at our desk at home or we go to office, and we actually experience the symptoms of anxiety. Yeah, some of us have our heartbeat really going fast. Some of us, have our stomach in a tight ball,
Mm.
it's held very tightly. Some
Health.
of us get headaches. So we have physical symptoms, right? Sweating, palpitations. So when you have physical symptoms like this, then it is very valuable to think that you require to go to a doctor. Yeah, number
Right.
one. Sometimes anxiety is also accompanied by depressive moods. So we feel very, very low, and we're unable to do our daily tasks. Which is get up, get ready for work on time, make our meals. We're unable to do simple things like that, right? We'd
Mm.
just rather be fed. So sometimes anxiety is also accompanied, by a very low mood, like the one I'm talking about.
Right.
Then also it's important to know that it is useful to go to a doctor. Some of us lose sleep, and we get lost at times in either any form of addiction. It could be food, it could
Mm.
be, yeah, so we are eating out of stress.
Right.
It may be any other form of habit that we are, following, whether it's,
Smoking.
it's substance, it could be, cigarettes, it could be, smoking, drinking, all of that, including scrolling, right?
Right.
Endlessly. uh, and if we find that we're spending 1 or 2 hours in a day, I would definitely think it's important to know that there's some anxiety sitting underneath that. Yeah,
Mm.
because whatever is stopping us from being productive in the way that we want to be, and
Right.
we're experiencing this at a high level for many hours in a day,
Mm,
right? And it is often accompanied by physical symptoms, like some of the ones I've told you.
mm,
Then I think it is a sign that it is important to meet a doctor, and not to meet any doctor for these kind of things. You don't go to a general physician, you don't go to your family doctor for this. Yeah, it is important to go to a psychiatrist,
psychiatrist.
because psychiatrist is an MBBS MD in psychiatry, and they are the doctors of the mind. And so they are the ones who would be the right ones to go to, because some of us don't even realize that. We go to our family doctor, to whom we would go to when we have flu, and we tell
Right.
them we're not feeling very good. Honestly, those are not doctors who should be prescribing our medication for this kind of issue, right?
Correct.
So we don't have to be worried at all, Ronak, to go to a psychiatrist. They're just a specialist doctor, that's all,
Mm.
right? A doctor who understands the connection between mind and body. And so they are the right ones to go to when we are suffering from, anxiety or depression, or, any of such mood issues that we face for a long time.
Ma'am, you discussed about psychiatrist, right? So I just want your journey. I want to hear your journey as a psychologist, as a psychiatrist, and while you were in the profession of psychiatrist, how did this idea cross to your mind to become a leadership coach? Tell me your journey.
Yeah. So first and foremost, Ronak, I'm not a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is an MBBS MD. They're a medical doctor. I am not that. I am a psychotherapist and a psychologist, and these are all different roles. Yeah. But my journey was really, Ronak. I have always belonged to the corporate world. I started my journey in human resources, and I used to lead human resources for a software company here in Bangalore. But alongside my corporate work, I had started doing counseling very early in my 20s. Yeah, I trained as a counselor and I started working in counseling. And that really got me hooked onto understanding, human mind, emotions, human experience. And then I
Mm,
started studying again. So I studied again and became a psychotherapist. I set up a private practice in Bangalore City. Then I
mm,
continued to study so that I become a teacher in psychotherapy. Yeah, so I had two parallel tracks constantly running, in my life. One track was the corporate track, where I continued to hold a role, in the corporate world. And I always had a second track where I was studying psychology, became a practitioner, became a teacher. So these two tracks have been, continuous for the last many, many years. It
many
never
years, right?
stopped. So I think, as I grew in my own career and I became more senior, professionally, I started realizing that these two needn't be separate tracks, right? That when I integrate some aspects of each of these tracks
Mm,
into my work, it becomes very rich for those who get coached, those who are in my program. So that is really how I started bringing my knowledge of psychology
mm,
actively to the corporate and into the leadership world,
mm,
because I think there is a very big place for psychology in leadership,
right.
right? Our capability to grow, to do things, to be effective, to
Mm,
serve our teams, our organizations, our clients. There is a lot of psychology in it. And so I started, bringing the gifts from that world of mine into the space of leadership. And that's how I started teaching and writing and speaking around the psychology, of leadership.
right. It's very incredible journey, right, ma'am? That you incorporated your interest of subject in leadership, and which is very helpful, practical, because psychology plays a massive role in leadership, right? And ma'am, moving towards the next very incredible question, which is, I mean, what are the few essential qualities which you would like to convey that a leader should, I mean, incorporate in his life, or in his style of leadership? What are the important or crucial styles?
Actually, Ronak, that list is very big. Yeah, well, because leaders are very significant because they have impact and influence at multiple levels in the organization, right? So to have that impact and influence, I think the qualities that leaders need to incorporate are really a very long list.
Right.
But I think at this moment, I want to contextualize this a little bit, your question, only to look at how our workplaces today, right? Today's workplaces are different from workplaces that were there even 10 or 15 years ago,
Mm,
right? Today's
right.
workplaces are multi generational. So there are 20-year-olds, ambitious 20-year-olds who are coming into the workplace. And there are very experienced and ambitious, people in their 50s also in the workplace.
Right.
Yeah. So these multiple generations are in one team. It requires a certain level of emotional and relational intelligence to be able to work
Mm,
with each other and to leverage each other's strengths. It's not like one is better than the other,
mm,
right? But to bring our awareness to the fact that we are in a diverse and multi generational workforce. So, I, as a leader, need to bring qualities of emotional intelligence, relational intelligence, to really understand how I can get the best of my team. Right, I think this kind of intelligence becomes very important for
mm,
leaders.
right.
I think even senior leaders, middle to senior, can't afford to sit on a high horse and say, I
Mm,
know, I belong, I've belonged in the workforce for so long, I know. I think an openness to learning, having a growth mindset, always being open to learning from multiple places, learning to value diversity, both gender, age, multiple kinds of diversity. I think all of these would be very important for today's workplace. Yeah, number one. I
right.
think the second thing that I would say is really important for leaders today, especially today where so much of work has gone remote, is a leader's capacity to connect, right? Building connections, knowing how to create, bond, leverage relationships at work are
Mm,
very important. Yeah. So when more and more people are working behind their laptops, never meeting their team members, rarely meeting their managers, how
mm,
is it that a leader can influence, impact, motivate their teams? You can't do it if you are not, deeply skilled in communication as well as in building connections. So I do think that these two aspects that I've spoken about today are very vital for today's workplace. Yeah. The
mm,
third thing that I think is very vital for leaders in today's workplace, in today's context, is building resilience.
mm,
Right? We are in a business environment where
right.
uh, every week there are huge changes, whether it's in technology, whether it's in market, whether it's in political situations, whether and therefore impacting market conditions. These are very volatile and
Always.
not so easy times that we are leading in,
Mm,
right?
right.
In such a situation where anything can hit your organization, your team, and you yourself as a leader, anything can hit. What is the value of building resilience,
Right.
right? Resilience to face whatever's coming, resilience to still steer the ship and navigate it,
Mm,
resilience to continue to lead your teams without breakdown, resilience to see opportunities and use those opportunities. So I
right.
think building resilience personally as well as in teams, and entirely within organizations. I think these two or three things is what I would think
Mm,
are the need of the hour in today's work culture and today's workplace.
right.
These three things I think would be very, very vital.
Very, very crucial as well. And Sailja ma'am, you mentioned that communication helps to build a very amazing, networks and build connections. So, I mean, what are
Yes.
your insights in regard of a professional communication and how to build communication skills in an amazing way so that we can influence our team, right?
I think maybe ironical what I'm going to say. I think being a good human being is important. Yeah,
Right.
a
In
good
general.
human being doesn't have too much to hide,
Mm,
right? A good human being can therefore openly connect with other people, learn
mm,
how to, I find in today's workplaces, the simplest things like, if you are on a work floor, learning to make eye contact and smile at people, people are forgetting to do even that much.
right.
Yeah, everybody is running.
Mm.
right? Looking at the clock, people don't seem to have time for the smallest of caring conversations, in their workplace. So I think connections are built on these very simple skills of learning to have rapport with others,
Mm.
getting comfortable talking to others, and genuinely being curious about other people,
Right.
right? Everything's not about me, myself, and my role. So,
Right.
learning to hold curiosity, learning how to do these very simple, human skills, I would think these are, of being able to connect with others. I would think it's important to just start there,
Mm.
right? To not get overly conscious that, oh, who are they? Who am I? What is our level? Am I
Right.
too junior? Yeah, these things have no relevance beyond a point,
Right.
right? So bring our comfort to meet another's eye, to smile at them, to be curious about them, to make a few moments to inquire how they are, to share
Mm.
something about our life, to bring some small vulnerabilities into the conversation. You don't have to share some grand story of your life, but
Right.
small vulnerabilities that allow us to be more humane. I think just these are places that we can start.
Right. One thing, ma'am, you have mentioned vulnerability. So the thing is, how can a leader can integrate vulnerability into its communication without compromising their authority? What are your insights?
Oh, okay, that's a great question, Ronak. Having a role, being a leader, having authority and vulnerability, yeah, these are all actually not deeply connected. Yeah, we make those connections, they're actually not deeply connected, because even as a leader, I'm a human being.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't stop
Right.
being a human being just because I have a role,
Mm.
right? So I think whether it's in small meetings, whether it's in our large meetings, whether it's as a leader, you're a speaker, you're addressing a big group, any small story about one's life, right? Where we are able to say something about what we have experienced, how we felt, what did I think, what did I do, what was the impact of that in my life? Any small story,
Right.
yeah, allows a leader to become vulnerable. When
Right.
you reveal any small experience,
Mm.
any small learning,
Mm.
any small fault of your own, yeah,
Right.
leaders are not fault free,
Mm.
right? Leaders are not people who know everything all the time. Many things I don't know, right? Many times I make mistakes,
Right.
right? So when leaders can share in these very simple ways, anecdotes, stories, faults of theirs, learnings of theirs, then automatically they become vulnerable
Mm.
because they're revealing something about themselves. But in no way does this undermine their level, their role, their authority, or
Authority.
what. Yeah, or it doesn't. So I think vulnerability and being able to show this human side of you as a leader is a very powerful strength.
Mm.
And I think it can be very inspiring for teams to
Mm.
work with such leaders who seem very down to earth,
Right.
right? Leaders who are very distant and far away because they're so big and so grand and so beyond reach,
Right.
right? They have one kind of influence, but down to earth leaders have a very different kind of influence
Right.
because they need to bring their vulnerabilities
Mm.
into conversations.
Right. And actually, it is very practical because the leader who can resonate with their team can build an amazing team, right? So, ma'am, tell me something about your book, Step Up. I mean, how did this idea cross to your mind to write a book upon leadership, right? What is that book
Yeah.
about? Yeah.
So that's my book, Ronak, Step Up. And I wrote it in 2018. I started writing it in 18 because by the time it was 2018, I had already spent 5 or 6 years
Mm.
focusing on women and doing groups connected with women. Yeah, publicly I was doing groups, I was announcing programs and doing groups connected with women. And within organizations, I had already started running women in leadership workshops for a couple of years. And I think all those experiences, started showing me some very clear patterns that I was seeing in women. Yeah. The
Mm.
first is that women are great at not thinking about themselves, right? So they're constantly thinking about how they would serve others. Yeah.
Mm.
In their personal roles, their families, in their work roles, they're still serving, they're still helpful, they're still
Right.
doing all of that. without, in a very sharp and focused way, thinking about their own careers. So I started noticing this a lot. The second thing I noticed is that women were not very aware of the early influences in their own life, yeah, which is their families of origin, the communities that they grew up, how that has shaped them, and
Mm,
it shaped them in some very unhelpful ways,
mm,
right? Because and they were not aware of it. And when I started doing my programs, I found that women who became more aware of themselves, right, of the influences of their families, how they were brought up, their beliefs that were not helpful, their
mm,
limiting ideas about, themselves and what they could do. I found that in the programs, when they started discovering these aspects of themselves, automatically their confidence grew, and they
right.
were able to do a lot of different things. And I was quite amazed how a little bit of psychology, a little bit of opening up of their inner map and their inner system
Mm,
could give so much of strength. So I started noticing a lot of that happening.
right.
And then a lot of my programs also started showing me how women did not have clear paths of how to grow, develop, and build their careers strong. Right? They
Mm,
didn't have the tools, they didn't have the communication skills, and importantly, they had no map of
that's
how
right.
do I, yeah, how do I do this? What are the
Mm,
steps? What
mm,
is it that I must follow? What are the 5 things that I must do?
mm,
Right? So this kind of pathway and map I didn't see available. But
mm,
when I started doing my programs, I designed all of this. And then my question was, how can I reach it to a bigger audience? Because not everybody is going to land up in a program with me,
right.
right? Only a handful of women land up in a program with me, a few hundreds maybe in a year. That's it.
Right. Right.
Right. So how do I reach my message
Mm,
across? How do I share my own journey of
mm,
building strength? How do I share my own journey of navigating, building a business?
mm,
I too was like them, but I have reached where I have reached by doing a set of things. So I
mm.
really started asking myself, how do I reach these messages to more people? And that is how the book idea emerged. And I started writing it in 2018 and, sort of finished it by 2019. I was ready. So I think it was just my need to reach more people, run up to
Mm,
have, any woman pick up a book. Books are affordable, far more affordable than courses are,
right.
far more affordable than coaching, than
Mm,
leadership programs. It's far
right.
more affordable. So I was really coming from that place. What allows uh, this book to land in every career woman's hands, make it accessible, make it simple enough.
Mm.
So that actually was my motivation, and that's how I wrote it.
It was a very practical initiative you took, and actually now your book is best selling and helping hundreds and thousands of women who are in this field of leadership, right? So it was an amazing initiative you took on that 2018, right? So thank you,
Yes.
ma'am. And you have shared very practical advices in regard of anxiety, stress management, and how to recognize that now it is a time to visit a psychiatrist, right? So it is wonderful talking to you, and thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Rana. All right. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.